Okay, so this is set 7, so this is pack 7, paper 2H higher calculator. Let's go to question 1. It's a nice straightforward substitution question. X equals minus 2. So remember, we've got to substitute those values in, so we've got 3 times, now x is minus 2, and that is squared, minus 5 times minus 2. Now this looks straightforward, but let's just put this in a bracket so we don't make a mistake. So minus 2 squared is 4. We do big maths, so we do indices first, and that is the powers. Minus, what's 5 times minus 2 is minus 10. Now lots of students will make a mistake, but if you do this substitution you get your method, and people will make a mistake with the negative sign. So 2 minuses next to each other becomes a plus, so that answer is 22. But you shouldn't lose a silly mark here. Question 2, it is a calculator paper, so you've got the ratio 1 to 2 to 3. I'm going to say mortar. Now it's a mortar mix, so we're mixing, that's mixing cement, sand and Q for quicklime. Work out the volume of sand needed to make 2.1 meters cubed of mortar mix. So we needed 2.1 in total. Right now, 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6. We want that to be 2.1, so we do 6 divided by 2.1. Work out what that is on the... So we're going to need to do 6 divided by 2.1 because this is the total amount we need, because right now this will make 6 kilograms of mortar mix. So if we do 6 divided by 2.1, that equals 20 divided by 7, or 20 over 7. I'm going to leave it as a fraction. So we divide the 3, the 2 and the 1 by 20 over 7, and that's going to equal, and that's going to equal these numbers. How can we check that all these numbers added together needs to make 2.1? Well, we just add those together so that we know we've got it right. Just use your calculator. And that does equal 2.1, so that is correct, but it's asking for the volume of sand, so I will just put in 0.7 and that's your 2 marks. Easy. Now part B, Julie has 0.75 meters cubed of quicklime and she has plenty of sand and cement, so you assume that she's got a limited amount of that, and you have to work out the greatest volume of mortar mix she can make. So let's start with that ratio of 1 to 2 to 3. That's the quicklime, sand, and C is the cement. So she's got 0.75 here. So I know to get to 3 to 0.75 is divided by 4. And you can do that by just working out 3 divided by 0.75. So we divide by 4 here, and I know that's 0.5, and 1 divided by 4 is a quarter, which is 0.25. So we just add these together to make the mortar mix, so that actually simplifies to 0.75, add 0.75, which is 1.5. So that should be a nice few extra easy marks. That's 4 marks in the bank. Let's go down to question 3. Looks like an isosceles triangle. We know isosceles triangles have 2 sides equal and base angles equal. So this means we know that 3x plus 32 and 87 minus 2x are equal. So we just create an equation and solve. So let's get rid of the 2x, minus 2x, we add 2x on both sides. So we get 5x plus 32 equals 87, minus 32 on both sides. So 5x equals 55, and divide by 5, and we get x equals 11. And you can double check that answer by substitution. And that is question 3 done. Nice, straightforward, 4 marks. Question 4a, well, that's just using the calculator. Input that into your calculator correctly and write the answer down. It's only 1 mark, so you don't need to show what you've entered in your calculator. Just write down the number. And that answer is just 1,160. Write your part A in standard form, so the numbers be between 1 and 10, times 10 to the power of a number. So we know that's going to be 1.160 times 10 to the power 3. Write your answers to part A to 2 significant figures. That's the second significant figure, and so that rounds to 1,200. Question 5, it looks like a probability question. Let's have a read of that. There's balls in the bag. Bag A contains 5 red and 4 white. Bag B contains 4 red and 1 white. Bag C contains 3 red counters and 3 white counters. The game begins by taking the counter from bag A. If it's red, it's taken from bag B, and if it's white, the next ball is taken from bag C. So this will be a probability tree type question. I've just pre-written the notes here. Even easier, they've got the tree for you, but you should be able to do that. So 5 out of 9, each branch must always equal 1. So that has to be 4 out of 9, even if it was not in the question. So if it's red, it's taken out of bag B. So in bag B there's 5 balls in total, so that's 4 out of 5. And the white is 1 out of 5. If it's white, it's taken from bag C, which is 3 red and 3 white. So that's 3 out of 6 and 3 out of 6. And you can make that a half and half. If this was a non-calc, I'll do that to make the numbers easier to work out. Right, so part B says, show that the probability that the second counter taken is red is twice the probability that the second counter taken is white. Just need to work out the probability when the second counter is red, so that's going to be 5 over 9 times 4 over 5, which is 20 over 45. Red here is going to be 4 over 9 times a half, which is 4 over 18. So the probability that red is picked second equals 20 over 45, add 4 out of 18, and you can just use your calculator to work that out. Now I'm just going to do white quickly. So 5 out of 9 times 1 out of 5 equals 5 out of 45, and we've got 4 out of 9 times a half, which equals 4 over 18. So P white second, 5 over 45, add 4 over 18. Now let's do that on the calculator. So on the calculator we get 2/3 and 1/3. So it says show that the second counter taken is red is twice the probability that it is white. Well, you can just say 2 times 1/3 does equal 2/3. Shows it, and all you're working out is perfect for that. Because this says it's a 5-mark question, remember this working out here is for this. So please do write the correct working out in the correct section, because the examiner might not spot it and you won't get the marks. And that's a communication mark here. So we're factorising here, which means put it into brackets. notice that this is a squared number and that's a squared number because it's x squared. This is called a difference of two squares. So this is the answer factorised. Now if you use a maths watch method for this, that is perfectly fine. This is just my way of doing it, which is similar to maths watch method. So 9 times 1 is 9. Now factors of 9, that's going to make minus 6. Well, that can only be 3 and 3, and they both have to be minus. Minus 3 times minus 3 is 9. So how I do it, I just write 9x minus 3. 9x minus 3. Now as we've multiplied by 9, I need to divide out a total by 9. And we want these to be whole numbers, so this has to be divided by 3 and divided by 3. This bracket and that bracket. So that becomes 3x minus 1 and 3x minus 1. And you should always, if you have time, expand it to double check you're correct, because students do make silly mistakes on this, and if you expand that you do get 9x squared minus 3x minus 3x minus 1 times minus 1 is plus 1, which does return you to the expression. So the answer is correct. Now this is an algebraic fraction. Can you see? We've already factorised that above, so that helps. And because it's algebraic fraction and we know we need to simplify, we know the top's going to have a 3x minus 1 in it. Because one of them's got to cancel. But do just check. I can also do this by inspection. And I know that's correct, so that cancels. So that becomes 2x plus 3 over 3x minus 1. But it is a free marker, so you should factorise that. So 6 times 3 is minus 18, because there's a minus sign there. Factors of minus 18 to make 7 has to be 2 and 9. So I know it's got to be minus 2 and 9, because if we multiply those together we get minus 18, and we want a plus 7, so 9 plus minus 2 is plus 7. So I just write this down. Now because I've multiplied by 6 here, I need to divide these two brackets by 6 in total, and that would be 2x plus 3 and 3x minus 1, like what I showed at the beginning. Do show this for a method mark, but I'm just giving you a tip that this is generally what happens with algebraic fraction type questions. And remember, as long as you can factorise with a coefficient, use a method that works for you. Question 7, the diagram shows a sector of a circle, radius 7. Work out the length of arc AB. Well, remember, a full circle is 360, and we've got a section that's 40. So I'm going to write that up here. So that arc is going to be 40 out of 360, that proportion of the circle, and its circumference. So you've got the radius is 7 and circumference is 2 pi r, so that must be times 14 pi. So on the calculator that equals 4.8 4.8869. We want the third significant figure, so that equals 4.89, and that will be the answer. And that's a straightforward 2 marks. Now sometimes they ask for the perimeter of the shape, so do just remember to add what I've highlighted in blue here. Right, question 8. The fraction P of an adult's dose of medicine, which should be given to a child who weighs W kilograms, is given by the formula. So the weight W is the weight of the child. You've got to use this formula to find the weight of a child whose dose is the same as an adult's dose. So obviously the child has probably got to weigh the same as an adult. This is the fraction. So what we want essentially is we want the ratio of 1 to 1, correct? So we want 3W plus 20 over 200 to equal 1. So that must mean we want 3W plus 20 to equal 200, because 200 divided by 200 is 1. So we just solve that. 3W equals 180 divided by 3 divided by 3. So W equals 60 kilograms. So that's the answer. Question 9, we've got a quadratic. Write down the coordinates of the turning point of the graph. So the turning point here is also a line of symmetry. So do remember that, because they can ask that as well. So we can see that coordinate is 1, 4, and that's quite straightforward. So the key is to know the keyword, and you've got your 1 mark there. You'll be surprised how many people get that wrong because they don't know what they're looking for. Write the roots of fx equals 0. Well, that just means when y equals 0, and these are the roots of the equation. So that is just going to be minus 1 and 3, but you can be professional and just write those as coordinates, or just x equals minus 1, x equals 3, it equals 3, and it does say roots, so it's more than 1. Write down the value of f 0.5, so that means you just let x equals 0.5, because you can see the 0.5 is just swapped with this x here, and I believe you just use this graph. So when x equals 0.5, and do a dotted line, and that looks like 3.7 to me, and you just need to write 3.7. And 5/6 of these men are right-handed. So you've got 3/10 of a member of a tennis club of men, 5/6 of these men are right-handed. Work out the fraction of the members who are right-handed men. So essentially all you actually need to do is 3 over 10 times 5 over 6, and that answer is 15 out of 60, and that is acceptable as an answer because they haven't asked you to do it in its simplest form. Now if that doesn't make sense, well, because I'm just going to use a base number of 100 because it's fractions, so it's all proportional. So 3/10 of them, that's 100 people at the club, that would be 30 men, right? So if you do 30 times 5 out of 6, that's going to be 150 over 6, which equals 25. So that gives you 25 men who are right-handed. And then you know 100 people in the club, so it's 25 out of 100, which simplifies to a quarter, which is the same as this answer because that simplifies to a quarter. So I showed you this way because it will make a bit more sense to you. Or even if I drew 10 circles, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we know 3/10 of them are men. So we do 3 times 5 out of 6, that actually equals 2.5. 2.5 out of 10 is also a quarter. So that helps you visualise that problem a bit better. So B's a similar one. 7/12 of the members of a badminton club are women. 3/8 of the members of the badminton club wear glasses. Work out the smallest possible numbers of members of the badminton club. So essentially we've got 12 and 8, so we want a whole number. So essentially for this one you find in the LCM of 8 and 12, which you should know equals 24, and that's the smallest amount. Question 11, it's what we want to do is make the denominators the same. So I'm going to times that by 3, top and bottom, times this by 4 to create an equivalent fraction. Now remember that's in brackets. So what we get here is over 12 over 12. Now if we multiply both sides by 12, which is the balancer method, that actually cancels out this 12. So we get left with equals, now we just need to expand that, so that's 8y plus 4 equals 3y minus 6, so just solve from here. So we get 5y plus 4 equals minus 6, minus the 4, minus the 4, 5y equals minus 10, and divide by 5 and divide by 5, so you know y is minus 2. So how I would do this question is, because this is not easy to substitute in, so I would rearrange that in a way that we all know well, and that's the form y equals mx plus c, which is for linear graphs. So we're going to minus 4x on both sides to get 3y equals 12 minus 4x divided by 3 and divided by 3, so we get y equals 4, because remember the whole side is divided by 3, minus 4 over 3x. Now create your table of values, and you can do this using your calculator and just plot the points. So I've just created a quick table of values, substituted the values of x in, use your calculator to get y. This means it's 2.6 reoccurring and 1.3 reoccurring, which we should know is 2 and 2/3, and that's 1 and 1/3. So we just need to plot that. So that is approximately here, 2 and 1 and 1/3. Let's say it's here, and 3 is 0. Make sure you use a ruler, and that's a line. 4x plus 3y equals 12. That will get you your 2 marks. Now this is regions. So show, by shading on a region, the region divided by all 4 inequalities. So that means you need to draw the graph of y equals 2x. But that's already drawn for you because it's this line here. We've just done this line, so let's look at the line y is greater than or equal to minus 3. So where's the y coordinate? Minus 3. And we can just treat that as equals. So we're going to draw a nice line here. and just set that to x equals 4, and x equals 4 is here, and we're going to label that. Now it's got to fit all these inequalities, so when is y less than 2x, so this is down here, it's this way, that's all less than 2x. 4x plus 3y is less than 12, so when it's less than, it's got to be downwards from the y, but it's got to fulfill this, so it's in between here, it's in this range here. Now y is greater than minus 3, so it's up here, but can we see we're bounded by this line here so far. So let me change colour pen. So now it's got to be in here, above this section here, below this section here. I mean, x is less than 4 is this way, so this is the shaded region, and that should make sense to you. Or the easy way is just to choose a coordinate in here, sub that into all four formulas. If it works, you know that is correct. So it's just changing the subject, and we're making C the subject and C is positive. So to get rid of the square root, we're going to square both sides, because that's the inverse of square root. So that's going to give us a squared equals 1 minus b squared over c squared. Now I want to deal with positive term here, because we're going to need to square root later to find the c, and you know you can't square root a negative number, so I'm going to plus b squared over c squared to both sides, so that will give us a squared plus b squared over c squared equals 1. Now we're going to get rid of the a squared now, which will leave us b squared over c squared equals 1 minus a squared. Now we're going to multiply out by c squared, multiply out by c squared to get b squared equals, remember that's in a bracket, 1 minus a squared. Now you can see divided out by 1 minus a squared. Now you can do a few less steps than this, I'm just showing you all the working out, equals c squared. Then we square root both sides, so the square root, and that is a b squared equals c, and that's the answer. And you can see if you don't do it this way, you're going to eventually be square rooting a negative c squared, which you can't technically do. So this is the way I would do this, and in all changing the subject questions, try to get the subject positive in most instances. But give it a go with a different way and you could see how you might become unstuck. Right, we have a quadratic formula here. It says Alison has used the formula correctly. Work out the quadratic equation that Alison is solving. So we're kind of reverse engineering from the quadratic formula. So step 1, we know the quadratic formula is this, minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So these numbers must match. So can you see this 2a must equal 4. So 2a equals 4, so we've got a equals 2. So we can start off with 2x squared. Can we find b? Well, we know b squared equals 49. So b squared equals 49 from here. So if we square root both sides, we know b equals plus or minus 7. But can you see this number here is minus 7? So b must be 7 here. And you do see a plus sign here as well. And 4ac, well 4ac must equal 32. and we know a equals 2, so we've got 8c equals 32. Now divide by 8, divide by 8, so c equals 4. And now we can substitute all those values in, so the answer would be 2x squared plus 7x plus 4 equals 0, because they've asked for the answer in that form. Now, question 15, it's a speed time graph for a car, and it's asking work out an estimate for the distance the car travelled in the first 6 seconds. This is the first 6 seconds. Now we have to use the trapezium rule for this, because the distance in a speed time graph is the area underneath the curve, and it's an estimate because what we would be doing is working out that area and this area. So your first step could be to work out this triangle. Now be careful with this scale because it's going up in 5s, so every 2 squares must mean it's going up in 1s. So this height looks like 2, the width is 2, so that's a triangle, guys, so remember to half it, so it's 2 times 2 over 2, that equals 2. So this bit will be 2. Now you can just use the trapezium rule here, so this side is A and that side is B, so this is 5 and 2, it's a right angled trapezium, so in this case this is the height here, which is 2, so the area of a trapezium is HA plus B, A plus B is the perpendicular sides, over 2, so we've got the height of 2, and we've got A as 2 plus 5 divided by 2, so we know that cancels, so that must be 7. This height here, now A equals 5, and now we can see B equals 9, and the height is still 2, so we've got 5 plus 9 times 2 over 2, that cancels, so that trapezium there equals 14, and this is important to do the working out to get method marks, so we just do 2 add 7 add 14, which equals 23. Now the question asks, is our answer underestimate or overestimate of the actual distance? So if you are breaking up the triangles or the trapeziums and it's over the curve, it will be an overestimate. So make sure you use a ruler, and if the trapezium that you're measuring is under the curve, then it's an underestimate. And in this instance I believe it's under the curve if I use the ruler, so you say underestimate, the chord is under the curve. Now it says calculate an estimate for the gradient of the graph when t equals 8 seconds. You must show how you got your answer. So you go to when t equals 8 and you try to do a line and find the change in y divided by the change in x, and this is important to use a ruler, so you'll just write that down So let's look at this. This height looks like it's 10 because it goes from 10 to 20. And from here, so you've got 9.2 minus 6.8. Get this bit as 2.4, so the change in y divided by the change in x is 10 divided by 2.4. .4 to 3.9. So that's the importance of drawing the tangent really well and using a ruler, because I easily lost an answer mark by not doing that properly. So remember, in this question you need to draw the tangent correctly with a ruler and make sure you get the scale right when you're doing the change in y divided by the change in x to get the gradient, because that should be a straightforward 2 marks. And I made a mistake here because my line is not good enough, or the tangent is not good enough. So D, describe fully what your answer to part C represents. Well, when you have speed changing over time, this is in fact acceleration in meters per second. Let's look at question 16 now. 15 boys and 9 girls. This is a combinations type question. One of the boys and one of the girls are going to be chosen to collect the cup. Work out the number of different pairs. Well, if you think the first choice, you have a choice of 15 boys and you have a choice of 9 girls, so it should be just 15 times 9, which is 135. Now, next part is 2 of the boys are going to be chosen to play in an all-boys team. So this is out of 15 boys only. Sam thinks the number of different pairs that can be chosen is 210. And Tom thinks the number of different pairs that can be chosen is 105. Give a reason for your answer. So you may think it's 15 times 14 because that's your first selection of a boy, one boy, 15 choices, and then there's 14 boys left. So that's why you would get 15 times 14, and you would assume it's 210. But be careful here, because I'll explain why. And that will be wrong in this instance, because for this type of question you can get duplicate pairs. So what I mean is, if this is the first group of boys, that's A, B, C, D and E, and that's just 5, a group of 5, and then obviously if you choose one here, you're going to have 4 left out of the 1, and that's the 5 times 4 equals 20 pairs. Now if you do the sample space of all of this, you all get 20 pairs, because you get A with B, A with C, A with D, A with E, then you get B with A. Now obviously I've written BB, but you can't have 2 boys the same. I'm just showing you that there. Then B with C, B with D, B with E, and so forth. So if you count, you've got 4 with A, 4 with B's first, 4 with C's, 4 with D's, 4 with E's, which equals 20. But it does say different pairs of boys. Can you see AB here is the same as BA, so we cannot include that because that is the same 2 boys representing the team. So you have to look at the context of the question. And if you see AC, well, CA is the same pair as AC, AD is the same pair as DA, and DE is the same pair as ED, so we cannot use that. BC is the same pair as CB, so hopefully this makes sense. BD is the same pair as DB, BE is the same pair as BE, and you can see we're crossing off pairs. CD is the same as DC, CE is the same as EC, and you should be able to see that we've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and obviously I did not cross out the DE and AE, so that's a AE the same as EA, so that's crossed, and that does make 10, so you can see why we have to actually divide that answer by 2 to make 10. So in this case, Tom, so your reason would be 15 times 14 divided by 2. It's only a 1 mark question, so that would be enough, which equals 210 divided by 2 equals 105, but it's important that you understand how that works. Okay, so a nice ratio problem. Students in the past have become unstuck with this before, just because they're not familiar with this type of question. So we've got these two ratios and we need to combine them into the form ABC. Now if we look, we have AB is 5 to 8, BC is 6 to 25. Now to combine these, we just need to make B the same for both. So find the LCM of 6 and 8, which equals 24. So we need to make this be 24, so we times both sides by 4. That's 100. Now we want this b to be 24, so that's multiplied by 3. So you've got 24 and 15. You can see now that we have b is the same, so we can combine this to one ratio, a, b, c. So we have 24 here, 15 for the a here, and then 100 here. So how can we do this in its simplest form? Is any number, that should be times 4, not times 22. Now this is odd, so it's not divisible by 2. This is even, so not divisible by 3. So you should be able to see this is already in its simplest form, and that is a quite easy 3 marks. So a girl Rana removes 120 balls from the bag and she puts a mark on each ball. She then puts 120 balls back in the bag because she wants to estimate the total number of balls in the bag, so this is a mystery. And on Tuesday she removes 20 balls from the bag and 8 of these balls have a mark on them. So this is a type of proportion question, and there's 2 ways that I would do this. I could say, well, there was 120 balls that she took out, and that's divided by n, the total number of balls we do not know. Now, she took 20 balls out on Tuesday, and 8 of them have a mark, and this will give us the proportion. So if we times 20 on both sides, we would get 20 times 120 equals 8 over n, and you can jump this step, so times n on both sides, get n on the top, and I'm going to work that out. We're going to get 2400 equals 8n. So we just divide by 8 on both sides to get the total number of balls, and that is 300 equals n. Now another way that might make more sense to you is on Tuesday 8 out of 20 had marks on it. So we know, well, this is a calculator test, so you can work that out as a percentage. If this was non-calc, we could just times that fraction by 100 to get 800 over 20, which is 40%. Or we could divide that by 2, divide that by 2 to get 4 over 10, and we should know that that is 40%. So anyway, we know that 40% then of the balls equals 120 from before, because this is the proportion of the balls she marked. And I'm going to show you how you would do this on a non-calculator test. So if we were to find 10%, we will divide by 4, divide by 4, and this is a way you can do reverse percentages as well. So that would be 30 balls, and how do we get 100% of the balls? Times that by 10 to get 100%, and times that by 10. So you still get the same answer, 300, and whatever you prefer, that is perfect. Question 19, we have n is an integer, and express m to the power 1 minus a third, and give your answers in terms of n. And we need to do that in standard form. So if we start with m equals 8 times 10 to the power 9n. Now we're multiplying both sides to the power minus a third. So this becomes in a bracket. Now what do we remember about multiplying by powers from indices? So minus a third times 9 is minus 3. So that will become 10 to the power minus 3n. Now we need to do this power on this 8. Now hopefully you remember that the power of third is the same as cubic root, and 8 to minus a third is the same as 1 over 8 to the third, so that equals 1 over 2, because you're just cubic rooting the 8 at the bottom, which equals 2. So that becomes a half times 10 to the power minus 3n. So let's write that here. And a half is 0.5 times 10 to the power minus 3n. Now what's wrong with this? This is not between 1 and 10. So we need to times this by 10. Now we times this by 10 to keep this answer the same. We need to divide this by 10. So this becomes m to the power minus 1 over 3 equals 5 times 10 to the power minus 3n. Now remember, 10 to the power minus 1 is the same as dividing by 10. So if we are doing 10 to the minus 3n essentially times 10 to the minus 1, we add the powers, so we just add the minus 1 here, and that will give you the full marks. Right, a nice probability question. Ashok has 1 5-cent coin, 2 10-cent coins, and 3 20-cent coins. I love how all these people in these questions are always very ethnic. So they're trying to be very multicultural. He takes at random a coin from his pocket. He records its value and puts the coin back into his pocket. He then takes at random a second coin from his pocket and records its value. So calculate the probability that he takes 2 20-cent coins. So at first we've got 3 out of 6. That's a chance of picking up 1 20-cent coin, but he puts the coin back, so he's still got 3 20-cent coins again. So it's just 3 out of 6 times 3 out of 6, so that's 9 out of 36, and we should know that's 1 over 4. That's quite easily done. Now it might be a bit more work to this one. Calculate the probability that the second coin he takes has a higher value than the first coin. So there was 1 5-cent coin, 2 10-cent coins, and 3 20-cent coins. So the easiest way to do this is to do a tree. So if that was to get a 5, that is 1 out of 6. A 10 is 2 out of 6, and a 20 was 3 out of 6. So that's 5, 10 and 20. Now we're just doing the second coin he takes has a higher value, so we don't need to fill in this tree here because that's not a higher value, but this is. So that's 2 out of 6, and that is 3 out of 6. So with this 10 branch, we don't need to work out the other two, we just need to be concerned with the 20. So that's just 3 out of 6, and the 20, or the coin can only be max the same value, so we don't even need to work that out. So we follow the 5 and the 10, which is 1 over 6 times 2 over 6. And we've got the 5 and the 20, so that's 1 over 6 times 3 over 6. And we've got the 10, then the 20, which is 2 over 6 times 3 over 6. So that's going to be 2 over 36, 3 out of 36, and 6 out of 36. And we just add all those together. And I'm doing this to make sure we get the method marks. And that's 12 out of 36. That should give you the full marks because they haven't asked you to do it in its simplest form, but we know that's 1 over 3, and that's a nice few marks, a nice 3 marks. And you'll notice there's always a probability question in all these exams. And that is finished.